Here we have Cheat's way of making rolls. It's from my bread maker. So the first thing we do is yeast. Strictly speaking, the recipe says 1.5 teaspoons. I'm going to use 1.25 teaspoons. The recipe says 1.25 teaspoons, but there we go. 1. And 1/2. The reason being that my experience with this is that it doesn't always rise as much as you would like. Okay, so you put it on the scales because they set to naught. There's 5 to 7 grams of yeast in there, I can't remember exactly. And we don't include that in the weights. Okay, the standard recipe for the dough for making rolls is 550 grams of flour. But we like to make it with rolled oats. Rolled oats. And up to 25%. Okay. So I usually use 20%, 110 grams. 110 grams looks like. Then we make it up to 550 grams with plain flour. Because I mean, you can make these without a bread mixer, a bread maker. It's good if you've got a mixer then though, because it's easier to mix the dough in the mixer with a dough hook. But in a bread maker, the next thing to do is to put in sugar. Sugar is 2 teaspoons. The yeast went into this corner here. So the sugar, 2 teaspoons, goes in this corner here. Salt. We like to use sea salt. Sea salt, from what I remember, is 1.5. Yes. So, and we put this as far away as we can from the yeast and the sugar, so it goes in the diagonally opposite corner. The recipe here that came with my bread maker calls for butter, but more often than not we prefer an olive oil or olive oil pomace. 25 grams of butter equivalent is a tablespoon and another tablespoon. Okay, now we're nearly finished with actually in fact we have finished with the official ingredients in the recipe. But being our family, being I'm the chef, we do things slightly differently. So here, this is actually quite awkward, can you see that? I've got 1 roughly chopped tomato. And the reason is, when we were in the UK, I developed a fancy for continental European breads. And they would often have combinations of onions, cheese, tomato. I was going to say garlic, but they don't because that stops the fermentation process. But onion bread particularly is something I really like. So guess what? Raided the store cupboard and I found one last little onion, or only that much, roughly cut, because actually as the bread makes, it does break up some, so you won't get a big lump of onion in the bread. Or in our case today, the rolls. Okay, so that's that. Put liquid in next, we're going to put water in. The water is not critical in terms of the measurement. But what I have found is if I put too much water in because of the tomato, because that basically goes down to water, then bread loaf is a bit soggy in the middle. So let's get a container. I'm going to say that tomato is a small one and it's not a rich, wet one. So I'm going to put, as the recipe suggests, 320 millilitres. 320 millilitres. But of course, 1 milliliter is 1 gram. So I don't measure it here in the jug, I just pour it, having reset the scales until I get 320 grams. Ding, 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 ding. One very ugly, rather old Panasonic bread maker. Excuse the wobbles. So we drop that inside, something like that. Close the lid. Now, although this is mainly white flour, because we've got the oats, we select whole wheat, and then the option is to make dough, and that would take 3 hours and 15 minutes, and the next bit's really difficult. So here we have some oats on the cutting board, and here we have the dough coming out. Gifford was asking me how the dough gets made in the
bread maker machine.
And it's the paddle that goes round and round that mixes the dough. We have finished with that, yes. The oven has already been put on at 230 degrees, which is the hottest that my oven will get to. And the idea of trying to get this to be a rectangle is it's easier to get rolls the same size. We want 8, so that's... How do you make 8, Daddy? Well, it's a half. Oops. And a quarter. And a quarter.
My makeup remover.
I'm sure our culinary fans don't want to know that, sweetheart. In a warm place, which in our house is on top of the refrigerator, for about 20 minutes.
So it will rise.
So they can rise a bit, yeah. Catch you later. these have been standing now. Well, they were going to stand for half an hour, but it's probably 45 minutes or more. Oh yeah. So they're a bit bigger than they were. We'll move this one so it's got room to cook. These really, really have come up nicely. Can you imagine those with a burger in? I can. Noise is off from a goo-goo. Off to the oven. This has been on at 230 for quite a while, so it certainly is hot. Looks like it in that one. We have been a bit naughty and a bit silly. We haven't timed this exactly. These should be in for about 10 minutes. Oh, they look really lovely. The way you check, just give me that. It's probably nice and crisp on the surface. That sounds okay. That sounds good. Okay. These are just so hot. Mind you, I mean, they've just come out of an oven of 230 degrees, so they should be hot. Otherwise there'd be something wrong in my oven. Anyway, here is some nice unsalted butter. You shouldn't really put a knife in a freshly cooked or hot roll. This is okay. Here's the tomato, which is all you'll see. You won't find the onion. You won't see the onion very easily. But the most important bit is this. Dun, 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 dun. And that is a knife, a knife, a knife, and some butter, some butter, some butter. Butter here is always very hard because you have to keep it in the fridge. This is yours. It's hot. It's very hot. How did you manage to do that? Tell me what you think. You like it? I'll put some butter on for my lady wife.